form a treaty. They would try to get a treaty signed. They couldn't defeat him with arms. These are men who came from England full of arms, trained. They couldn't defeat him, so they got a treaty. And he and the others, after having fought this time, unfortunately signed this treaty. But you see, his sister would not do it. He had a sister called Nanny who was on the other side. She wouldn't do it. I think I told you the story when they sent some of their soldiers to tell her, well, Kojo has signed, and we have a treaty that you will sign a peace treaty with us. She had a lot of sisters in her regiment. She made them shoot those soldiers. So they never went back to tell their captain what had happened. They shot them all. Now this is a kind of thing, too many history books, very few history books will tell you. The records are there for all to see. Now this is not only Jamaica. It happened in Dominica, the same thing. 50 years, people like Bala, Mabuya, Angelique, Bibian, all of them fought. 50 years. The fight went on. As the younger ones grew to manhood, they joined, and womanhood, they joined the struggle. But there were always elders there with them who knew the terrain, who were tremendously self-disciplined, stern disciplinarians, and who again did not believe in taking prisoners. One man who did not believe in taking prisoners was Dessalines. Another man was Christophe. He said he didn't come here to count heads. He came there to shoot heads. This is what the war was all about. And he was right. Not like, unfortunately, not like Toussaint. To show you the kind of man, the leaders, the kind of men the leaders were. Take a man like Christophe, for instance. I'll talk about Dessalines in greater length later. But take a man like Christophe. Once a British man, captain called Hugh Cathcart, they came to talk terms with Toussaint. And he complained to Toussaint in front of Christophe. Christophe was a colonel at the time. Toussaint was a general. Cathcart, who was involved in the struggle too, he was an English soldier. The English fought with the French too in Haiti, incidentally. He was complaining to Toussaint how one of his ship's captains had been beaten by Christophe's men at Cap Français because he protested when he was forced to transport. This man protested when he was forced to transport Christophe's infantrymen down to Port-au-Prince. Toussaint promised him in front of Christophe that he would look into the matter and get Christophe to apologize. You know what Christophe said to him in front of that Englishman? He said he was cool, he was calm, he was detached in his usual way. He said, but you know, Mr. Cathcart, if the master of the ship had been a Frenchman and had conducted himself in that manner, I should have shot him out of hand. So the guy who was the captain, the guy who did that was an Englishman. So he was lucky that he was English, because Christophe said he'd have shot him out of hand. This is the kind of struggle, a complete struggle of extremes, where they knew very well that war was not a game, and that the war had to be won, because if it was not won, they would remain enslaved. Now, talking about the Quilombo, from the very beginning, when the Dutch controlled Brazil, and they began to take, and again they made the unfortunate choice of taking a lot of people of the Ashantis, the Akans over there, and the Akans fought like the great warriors that they were. And they were great, 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 great warriors, and they would not give in. In fact, it was difficult. There was a time they were thinking of not getting any more Akans down to take them across to the Americas, because they fought back, and they were the ones that were the leaders. They were the ones that ran the Quilombos. They were the ones that ran the Maroon encampments, and they began to be afraid that they would take over. One of the mistakes that Kojo made, Kojo could have taken the whole, historians say that, this man says it, Robinson, that Kojo could have taken Jamaica at that time, taken it, and put the British out, threw the British out. Instead of that, he formed. This is the exact same thing that happens to us today. When we have strength on the upper hand, we fall for these devices. There has not been one treaty, one contract, one agreement the Europeans have made with Africans where Africans have come out the better. They've always taken advantage of us, and we keep on allowing them to take that advantage. The lesson does not seem to have been learnt. And again, if there's one lesson to be learnt now, it is this. It is this. Going back to the Quilombos, we talk about Palmares, but there were many, many, many Quilombos in Brazil. And we talk about Palmares because actually Palmares was the one where that got it was literally independent. They got their independence, and they ran as a republic for a tremendous length of time. And it took over the whole of the 17th century. It was controlled by the African brothers, among them the greatest leader of them all there, Zumbi. And this is again what, if we look at the, it had over, they reckoned after a while, they had about as many as 25,000 Africans living on a vast area of over 4,500 miles, and that they were living in well-organized African encampments, villages, well organized, and over each section it was built, the whole thing was built in such a way that if one section got attacked by the Dutch or the Portuguese, the others could take care of themselves. And it was even difficult to get to Palmares. It was difficult because they had so many traps that they had set. You had to actually know these things not to get in trap. And the people who, one of the things that they talk about is that the control was put in the hands of all of these Quilombos by a council of elders. A council of elders. This is something that we have not, in fact, taken note of here because of the kind of westernization of the African family. We have not thought about elders except to send them to homes to die. Right. This is something that the elders played an important part, not only in the Quilombos, which were areas of, there were maroon sections, there were maroon encampments, not only there but on the plantations. The most important person was the elder, who was a priest and who had control of the Africans there. And they placed more allegiance to the elder than they did to the plantation owner, in spite of his whips and his dogs and his guns and his hatchets and everything. They placed more importance. They were more afraid to have something negative to an elder than they were afraid of the plantation owner. And this is something that we must remember. Again, the other thing is there were Congolese there, Angolans, Ashanti, they were all, but again, what happened, they could live together with in